Hey everybody, welcome to our next Chautauqua installment. Today, I am so thrilled to have Peter Ekman with us. Peter has been at acupuncture for a long, long time. He has been on the podcast a few times, most recently in a history series. And if you want to get a look at some of the early days of acupuncture, like the wild, wild west early days, that's a great conversation. Peter's been involved with Korean medicine as well as Wesleyan acupuncture, other kinds of acupuncture, Ayurvedic medicine. He's made a study of pulse diagnosis. Peter is one of these people, I could call him a scholar, and that would not be incorrect. But beyond that, I call him a student. He is a true student of the craft. And I'm thrilled to have him with us. He has a perspective on Saam and beyond that, a perspective on Korean medicine and something of its history, something of its structure, something of its practice that many of us don't have access to, or at least we haven't had that much access to. I'm delighted to have Peter with us today. I've been so looking forward to this. Peter and I were talking as we were getting things set up today. And he was saying that he loves to be in clinic and teach people that way. And he loves things like podcast conversations. Presentations, less interesting. So today's an opportunity to kind of do a hybrid presentation podcast, except instead of me being the host, all y'all get to ask some questions. Peter's got a lot of material, and really, this isn't just a presentation. It's an opportunity to interact with someone who's been around for a while and knows something about Korean medicine. So I'll shut up with that. Peter, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into it.
Okay, hello everybody. Happy to be here. And just in terms of housekeeping, I want to reinforce what Michael just said about how I like to do things. It is very informal. I really encourage people to join in, ask questions, ask to clarify things, share other points of view if it seems to be important in terms of anything I say. Michael wanted me to explain a little bit about my background just to start off with, because I think it does speak to what we're going to spend 2 hours investigating, and that is that I have many different hats: historian, practitioner, doctor, teacher, etc. And today's presentation, I think, is going to include some of all of that. So I was originally trained as a Western medical doctor, graduating New York University with an MD and a PhD in physiology way back in 1972, I think. I got interested in acupuncture for shortly thereafter, 1973. And as it turned out, my first exposure to acupuncture was from Korean practitioners. And the first teacher that I can remember, I learned in a pretty crazy methodology that you can go to one of the geological history podcasts to hear in detail. I don't want to waste time going over that, but one of the teachers and Korean teachers in that group that I learned from initially was Kim Se-han. Kim is about the most popular Korean name, so there's scads of Kims all around. This Kim Se-han was one of the teachers, and the relevance of that for today's presentation is that Kim was someone who used Korean constitutional acupuncture that uses the 4-needle technique, and actually diagnosed me way back in 1973. And probably that was a big spur to my own interest in anything foreign needle technique related. I don't think he ever, mentioned the name Saam, but as you will see, that connection with the foreign needle technique becomes a very important one. So I started with a group of Korean teachers in Los Angeles in 1973, and then moved to the Bay Area in San Francisco. And my main teacher there, whom I did a approximately 10-year preceptorship with, was Che Lu. And I really want to honor him. It was through him that I got exposed to the wide world of Korean acupuncture, including several trips to Korea. And in that process, I met the founders of two of the main branches of Korean acupuncture, individual styles. The originator of Korean hand acupuncture, Yute Woo, whom I sponsored to come teach in the United States, and ended up editing the English version of his textbook on hand acupuncture. And then also the originator of Korean constitutional acupuncture that was later name changed to Eight Constitutions Medicine, Guan Do-an, and studied with him in Korea and Seoul. And that latter one is a very significant aspect of what I'm going to be talking about today, because Korean constitutional acupuncture essentially was an expression of the possible uses of the four needle technique that is the real guts of Saam's teachings back in the 1500, 1600 years of ancient history as I look at it. Okay. But aside from that, I've actually had many Korean teachers that have influenced me. So let's see if I can think of some of the more important ones. There was, who else? See if I can jump in here. Give me just a second. Some of you may know David Lee is a California acupuncturist who has come up with a unique use of the Harari points as a focus of acupuncture, which he calls tetrasoma acupuncture or bisoma acupuncture. We've had an interesting interaction. There's a whole, I'll get to this later, but a whole branch of Korean medicine called Sasang medicine that I was introduced to and studied with someone who adapted it to, I'll get to it later, it actually was originally an herbal medicine system, but it was adapted for acupuncture by a man named Paramo Chang. And I spent some time studying at his clinic and had really interesting insights from him. So that's just some of the Korean influence. I would say more than half of my teachers have been Korean. But as Michael mentioned, I also spent a long time, 10 years at least, studying and interacting with J.R. Worsley with the Five Element tradition. So that is always going to crop up in what I have to say. And actually, it's quite pertinent to mention that at the beginning, because one of the things I'm going to get into is the difference or the importance between the difference of constitutional approaches to acupuncture and conditional approaches to acupuncture, and where does Saam fit in all of this. So that's a little bit about my background, a little more. I don't want to just limit it to that because it's also involved Japanese acupuncture, just last week, I was in Hawaii on vacation and visited my 88-year-old colleague, Japanese colleague, Chieko Mayakawa, who helped me with my first history book in 1996, In the Footsteps of the Yellow Emperor. And you'll see echoes of that in today's presentation with the kind of charting I do of the history. All right, there's that. There's Ayurvedic medicine that I studied because my focus at some point in my career turned to pulse diagnosis. And Ayurvedic pulse diagnosis is a very important aspect of my current approach. So the topic of today's talk is Saam and the varieties of Korean acupuncture. And just a word about how that came about. As Michael mentioned, I had done several geological podcast interviews. And the last time we had talked, I believe, maybe it was afterwards, and we were just kind of chatting around. I had mentioned to Michael that I was a little bit perturbed by the current terminology of Saam acupuncture has become, a lot more popular than it was 10 years ago. And that when I started seeing all these references to Saam acupuncture, I was a little bit thrown, to tell you the truth, because it was quite different than what I had learned starting back in my 1973 introduction to Korean acupuncture and medicine. And I thought that there was a little bit of an issue there about what do we mean when we say Saam acupuncture. So I think I'm going to try to start with it. So Michael had suggested is, well, why don't you join this Chautauqua group and share that perspective? So just so you understand, I'm coming at things from a little different angle than I think the rest of the audience participating in today's presentation are. And that's okay. That's really healthy to have different points of view. So that's what I'm doing. And we're going to start off with what does it mean when you say Saam acupuncture?